You know that feeling, right? That moment you're wrestling with a tough problem, maybe at work, maybe just, I don't know, trying to figure something out, you just hit a wall,
Yeah, completely stuck. Or, maybe worse, you come up with something and it's okay.
right? It works. But it feels so clunky, kind of uninspired.
Yeah.
You just know there's a better way, a more elegant way, but your brain just won't go there.
It's like our brains get stuck in these grooves, and they kind of blind us to those simpler, maybe more innovative paths, and you're left wondering, like, why wasn't that obvious before?
Well, you are definitely in the right place because this is the deep dive. And today we're taking a really deep look into Matthew May's fascinating book, Winning the Brain Game, Fixing the 7 Fatal Flaws of Thinking.
It's a great one.
Yeah. Our mission really is to explore these fatal flaws, these sneaky mental glitches that seem to constantly trip us up, and maybe more importantly, to unpack the practical, sort of field-tested fixes that May offers. Things that can genuinely help you get to more elegant solutions for pretty much any challenge you face.
Think of it as a shortcut, maybe, to mastering your mind over your brain, which sounds a bit weird, but May makes this really key distinction.
Okay.
He says the brain is like the passive hardware, it just absorbs experiences. But the mind, that's the active software. It directs our attention. And here's the cool part. It can actually rewire the hardware.
Wow.
Yeah. This idea completely reframes how we can intentionally get better at thinking.
And he gives us this mantra. It's like a guiding principle for this whole thing. And it really forces you to second guess yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What appears to be the problem isn't. What appears to be the solution isn't. What appears to be impossible isn't.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Just pause.
Totally. And what's really compelling, I think, is that May didn't just cook these flaws up in a lab. He actually found these patterns over a decade, watching more than 100,000 people.
Wow, that many.
Yeah, it started when he was at Toyota's U.S. corporate university teaching this thing called principled problem solving. And he just kept noticing these same repetitive thinking traps that stopped people from finding really good solutions.
So these flaws came out of real-world stuff, observing lots and lots of people, not just theory.
Exactly, real-world experience. Okay, so let's dive in. Part 1, May calls this misleading. These are the flaws that, well, lead us down the wrong path. And the first one, this one feels very familiar to me, is leaping,
Mm-hmm.
jumping to conclusions.
Oh, yeah, leaping. It's that immediate, almost knee-jerk thing we do, right? Offering solutions before we've even properly framed the problem or gathered the facts.
It feels productive, though, doesn't it? Like you're brainstorming fast.
Totally. It feels like you're getting stuff done. But here's the catch. This quick-fire approach often means we end up, well, solving the wrong problem. Or maybe just a symptom, not the actual root cause.
I can absolutely see that. May saw this with a group of LAPD bomb techs. Highly trained people, right?
You'd think so.
Yeah.
Meticulous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when they were given this complex problem about new IED threats, what did they do? They immediately jumped into brainstorming solutions. They totally skipped the crucial step they were trained for, synthesizing the facts, really framing the issue first.
Oh, so they bypassed the why, kind of like in May's shampoo challenge examples, where people instantly suggest, security cameras instead of asking, hang on, why are people taking the shampoo?
Right. It's such a common human thing. Think about Malcolm Gladwell's idea of thin slicing from Blink. We make these super quick judgments. Sometimes they're right on, sometimes.
Way off, yeah. Gladwell even shared that story about NYPD officers stopping him just because his big head of curly hair sort of matched a description. Nothing else did. Our brains just blink to save time, but that blink can definitely be faulty.
And it's not just mental leaps. May uses this physical challenge, the prisoner's release. 2 people tied at the wrists with string have to get free without untying knots.
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
And he says people immediately start this string dancing, stepping over ropes, twisting around, without ever just stopping to think about the core problem. It shows our preference for doing something, anything, over just thinking slowly first.
Or that Nancy the nurse example he uses. If you hear she's caring, empathetic, meticulous, boom, your mind leaps to great nurse.
Right. Ignoring maybe other crucial stuff or potential downsides.
So this leaping thing, it comes from how our brain works. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize winner, talked about System 1, fast thinking, and System 2, SL, low thinking.
Right.
Fast thinking is great for routine stuff, like catching a ball. But when things are complex or you don't have all the info, that's where System 1 trips us up. Kahneman basically called it a machine for jumping to conclusions.
And apparently, uncertainty is a huge trigger for this.
Mhm.
Studies show when our brains aren't sure, they try to connect the dots super fast,
Mm.
often making up a story that isn't quite right.
Exactly. It's like the brain screams, I need an answer, NAW, and just grabs the first plausible thing it finds.
Okay, so how do we fix this leaping? May's fix is framestorming,
Framestorming. Yeah, I like this one. Instead of trying to suppress that urge to leap,
which is hard.
totally, you actually redirect it. Framestorming is kind of like Aikido using the force against itself rather than karate, just brute force suppression. It feels like brainstorming, which is comfortable.
Okay.
But the key difference, you're generating questions, not answers. It's a way to gently nudge your low thinking online without it feeling like a chore.
So how does it work? Like steps?
Yeah, pretty straightforward. 3 steps. First, you kind of change the language. Think about the challenge in terms of beautiful questions, as Warren Berger calls them. Questions that are ambitious but also actionable.
Right.
Second, you just rapidly generate questions using why, what if, and how.
Mm.
So for that shampoo problem, instead of how do we stop theft, you ask why are people stealing it? What if nobody wanted to steal it? How might we redesign the bottle without adding cost?
Ah, I see. Different angle.
Totally. And then, third step, pick the 2 best, most compelling questions from your list. Those become the real starting point for brainstorming actual solutions. It turns the problem into more of an intriguing puzzle.
Which naturally engages that slower, more creative thinking. I like that. Okay, so if leaping is rushing forward to a solution, it feels like once we do leap, we often just get stuck on that first idea. Is that the next flaw?
That leads perfectly into flaw number 2, fixation. Mental rigidity.
Got it.
Fixation is kind of an umbrella term for, our blind spots, thinking in straight lines, what psychologists call functional fixedness. Our brains are amazing pattern machines.
Right.
They make patterns, recognize them, act on them based on everything we've experienced. That makes us super efficient. But it also means our brains can get locked into those patterns. It becomes really hard to think different, to get out of those mental grooves.
Like driving the same way to work every single day, you stop seeing other routes.
Exactly. Your brain digs these deep grooves, and it's hard to even notice a potential shortcut, let alone actually take it.
Right. And this is shown perfectly by that shampoo solution. The really elegant one hardly anyone gets.
Bottle tops.
Yeah. Remember, most suggestions broke the low-no-cost rule. But the health club staff, they just took the tops off the shampoo bottles. Nobody wants to stick an open, expensive bottle of shampoo in their gym bag.
So simple. But if you immediately thought, oh, but that would annoy the honest people, May says that's your fixation flaw showing. You're fixated on the act of using the shampoo right there, not the underlying behavior.
Ah, tricky. Okay.
He uses another great one, star video. The problem was customers not rewinding videotapes. Remember videotapes?
Legally.
Huh. Most people brainstormed ways to force people to rewind before returning. Penalties, reminders.
Standard stuff.
Yeah. But the actual solution star video used, they just flipped the policy, rent the tape unrewound, put a little sticker on it saying it might need rewinding, problem solved. The issue was just that it needed rewinding at some point, not specifically before return. Our brain just assumed the latter because that's how it always worked.
That unconscious assumption, based on past experience, was the block.
Wow, okay.
You see this pattern recognition everywhere. That JFK versus Adolf Hitler example is fascinating. Give the description. Young, charismatic Catholic leader, military crisis, name becomes legendary.
Most people jump to JFK.
Instantly,
Yeah.
especially in the West. And they completely screen out Hitler as a possibility, even though the description fits early on. Our brains literally build what they expect to see, like that visual illusion with the E in the white space.
Oh, yeah, once you see it.
Your brain fills it in. It
Yeah.
just needs enough data to trigger a familiar pattern. Deviating takes real mental effort. These mental models we hold, these deep beliefs, they filter everything.
Okay, so how do we break free from fixation? The fix is inversion.
Inversion.
Yeah.
It's all about flipping your thinking, seeing things through a totally new lens. This literally helps spark new neural connections. It's neuroplasticity in action, the brain rewiring itself.
Like using your mind to change your brain. Exactly. Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz does this with OCD patients, an extreme form of fixation. He uses a 4-step tool, relabel, reframe, refocus, revalue, to help them use their minds to overcome these really powerful intrusive thoughts, if it works there.
Imagine for everyday rigidity.
Okay. And May's favorite inversion technique, opposite world.
Sounds fun.
It is. You take your challenge, list its main attributes, say a traditional circus, clowns, animals, cheap tickets. Then for each one, list the extreme opposite or reverse.
So no clowns, no animals, expensive tickets.
Exactly. Then you use those opposites as new starting points for framestorming, for asking new questions. What if we had a circus with no animals but amazing human performers and charged premium prices?
Ah, Cirque du Soleil.
Bingo! That's a perfect example of inversion leading to a totally disruptive idea. Think about Airbnb no-owned property, Uber no-owned cars, Tesla no gasoline. They all inverted the existing models. It helps you break free from how things are and explore how they could be.
That's really powerful. Okay, let's move to the third misleading flaw. This one feels like it wastes a lot of time and money. Overthinking.
Oh, definitely. Overthinking is our amazing talent for creating problems that weren't even there to begin with.
Yeah.
It's over-analyzing, over-planning, just generally making things way more complicated, adding unnecessary complexity and cost, and often completely ignoring the constraints you were given.
The marshmallow challenge is the classic example here.
Perfect example. Kindergartners consistently beat MBIs and CEOs. Why?
Not because they're smarter.
Not at all. The kids just immediately focus on the marshmallow, the real problem, the constraint. And they build lots of simple prototypes. They test, learn, make it a bit taller, a bit stronger, iterate.
While the adults are.
Overanalyzing, planning this one super complex, perfect structure, and then it often collapses right at the end because they never really accounted for the weight of the marshmallow. They ignored the freestanding constraint and aimed for perfection first try.
And we saw this with the shampoo and videotape problems too, right? People suggesting solutions that ignored the no cost or no extra burden on the customer rules.
Absolutely. This do more add-on instinct is partly evolutionary, May argues. Our brains are kind of wired to hoard resources, accumulate stuff. We feel safer with more, even if it just makes things too complicated. It's a bias to add, not subtract.
You know, our education system probably plays into this too. It's all about certainty, getting the right answer. You take the test after the lesson.
Right. Where there's one correct answer.
Which kind of stifles that fearless, rapid experimentation kids do naturally. You know, where they test before the lesson, and failing is just learning. You sort of lose that ability to just try stuff.
Precisely. And our brains can actually learn faster sometimes if we disengage from overanalysis, especially for things involving motor memory, like riding a bike. Kids are naturals at this. They just absorb the basics without getting bogged down. It's why they learn languages or instruments so fast sometimes. Our overthinking literally gets in the way.
Okay, so the antidote to overthinking is prototesting.
Prototesting. Love the mashup name. It's exactly what it sounds like. Prototyping meets testing. It's about making educated guesses, hypotheses about the future, and then running simple, fast experiments to see what you learn.
Bringing back that childlike experimentation.
Exactly. Reuniting learning with experimenting.
Yay.
Rapid trial and error.
And there are two key tools he mentions.
Yeah, two really powerful ones. First, surfacing assumptions. You ask, for this solution to work, what must be true? This forces you to identify the riskiest bits, the biggest leaps of faith you're making.
Like assuming the marshmallow won't tip over the spaghetti sticks.
Exactly. You have to acknowledge those unknowns. And the second tool is experiment design. Basically using a simple template to structure your tests for those assumptions. Something like, the team believes exploring this action will likely result in outcome, and we'll know because our metric changed significantly.
So it forces you to be specific about what you're testing and how you'll measure it.
Right. It enables that rapid, iterative learning.
Yeah.
It ensures your solution is actually valid tested in the real world, not just reliable on paper.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's shift gears into part 2, which May calls mediocre. These are the flaws that kind of subtly undercut our best thinking, leading us to settle. And the first one is satisficing, settling for good enough.
Satisficing. Yeah, Herbert Simon, the Nobel laureate, coined that term. It describes our natural tendency to just pick the first option that seems okay, that offers an acceptable payoff, instead of really pushing to find the optimal, the truly best way.
We kind of rationalize it, right? Like, oh, perfect is too hard, or this is fine.
Exactly. That Roman numeral puzzle is a great illustration. xi plus I equals x. Most people quickly see solutions where you move one stick, like making it x plus I equals xi.
Seems logical.
And then they stop. That's satisficing. But the truly elegant zero-move solutions, flipping the paper upside down, x weak I plus ix reads ix plus I equals x, reading it right to left, looking in a mirror, those are way more optimal. But our brains often just don't bother looking further once they find an answer.
It's like we tick the box and move on.
Pretty much. The win as much as you can game shows this too. Teams could collaborate for a massive collective win, but almost always they sub-optimize. They go for what looks best for their team in the short run.
Even if it means everyone loses out on the bigger prize overall.
Right. And the Monty Hall problem? Classic satisficing. Most people stay with their first door choice because it feels 50-50 after one door's opened.
But statistically, switching is better.
Way better. Switching is the maximizing move. Our simple, good enough heuristic leads us astray.
So why do we do this? Why satisfice?
Well, Herbert Simon also gave us bounded rationality. Basically, our brains have limits. We just can't process all the information out there to make the absolute perfect decision every time. So we rely on mental shortcuts, heuristics, rules of thumb.
Makes sense.
And in today's world, with information overload everywhere.
The Google effect.
Exactly. Too much info can actually paralyze us or even make us less happy. Barry Schwartz studied maximizers versus satisficers. Maximizers might get slightly better outcomes, like jobs, but they often feel worse about them because they're always worrying they miss something better. So good enough starts to feel pretty appealing.
Okay, so the fix, if we don't want to just settle, it's synthesis.
Synthesis. This is a more maximizing approach. The goal isn't just picking one option, it's examining different options and creatively combining the best parts of multiple worlds into something new. It's both and thinking, not either or. Even Simon himself later emphasized design thinking to push for these alternatives.
And Roger Martin has some ways to do this.
Yeah, two great approaches he highlights. First is integration, blending two models that seem like they conflict but are both attractive. Think about the Toronto Film Festival. It integrated the industry buzz of Cannes with huge audience appeal, making the People's Choice Award its big thing.
Best of both worlds.
Right. Or Walmart integrating sustainability. They didn't ditch their low-cost model. They used their clout to pressure suppliers on environmental stuff, effectively blending cost leadership with green leadership.
Okay, and the second approach?
Decomposition. Breaking a big problem into smaller parts and applying different solutions to each piece. Target did this brilliantly. They created like two stores in one.
How so?
They sold basic commodities at discount prices, like Walmart. But for apparel and home goods, they partnered with high-end designers. So they were a discounter and a chic retailer simultaneously, carving out a unique space.
That's clever, decomposing the retail experience.
Exactly. And May suggests, for practice, trying the New Yorker cartoon caption contest.
Huh, I love that.
It's perfect practice for synthesis. You have to combine the image and the caption in a way that's surprising, elegant, goes beyond the obvious first thought. Synthesis really pushes you past mediocre compromises towards more sustainable, effective solutions.
Okay, next, mediocre flaw. Downgrading, which sounds like giving up.
Pretty much. May calls it preemptive surrender. It's when we basically talk ourselves out of a challenging goal before we even really give it a shot. We revise the goal downwards, maybe even disengage completely. It's like declaring victory by quitting early.
That story of Cliff Young is amazing here, the 61-year-old farmer winning the 875-kilometer ultramarathon.
Incredible story. All the pros were sleeping for 6 hours a night. Cliff, who was basically running in overalls and boots.
Didn't know that was the rule.
Right, he just kept running, napping, maybe an hour here and there. He didn't know it couldn't be done his way, so he wasn't limited by that mental barrier others had accepted. That downgrading in reverse, he didn't downgrade because he didn't know the supposed limit existed.
If you think you can or can't, you're right. It really applies here.
Absolutely, and you see downgrading in those problem challenges too. People ignore the constraints to justify weaker solutions, or they settle for an 80-20 fix.
Yeah.
Jack Welch talked about his GE managers gaming the goal, shrinking their market definitions so they looked like number one instead of actually going for growth.
Nitty.
And that question people ask so quickly in the Prisoner's Release Challenge, is this really possible? Often within like 40 seconds. That's a huge red flag that downgrading is kicking in.
So why do we do it? Part of it is just self-imposed limits, right? We underestimate ourselves.
Totally. That simple exercise, twist, reach behind you, note how far, then close your eyes, visualize going further, and try again. Almost everyone goes further the second time. We just default to conservative estimates of our own capacity.
And the challenge itself matters too.
Hugely. Goals need to be audacious, yes, but also feel achievable. You need the means or a path to get the means. Otherwise, we disconnect. Think Lexus aiming to beat BMW, Southwest aiming for 10-minute turns, NASA's Pathfinder landing on Mars with a tiny budget. Those were dramatic destinations that forced radical innovation because downgrading wasn't an option, and the capability was either there or had to be invented.
They didn't lower the bar, they changed how they jumped.
Exactly. And Angela Duckworth's work on grit is relevant too, that perseverance for long-term goals. It predicted success at West Point better than IQ. Lack of grit makes us more likely to disengage and downgrade when things get tough.
Okay, so the fix for downgrading.
Yep.
Jump starting, like for a car battery.
Precisely. Jumpstarting is about tapping into different ways of thinking to revitalize your mental energy when you feel stalled or tempted to give up on a big goal.
How do we do that? 3 gears.
Yeah, 3 cool techniques. First, can-if cascading. This is powerful. You consciously replace I can't because with I can.
So, flipping the negative.
Exactly. The Mars Pathfinder team couldn't afford a traditional landing module. Instead of, we can't land for $150 because landers cost too much, they said, we can land for $150 if we figure out how to land without a traditional module.
Which led to the airbags. Wow. It turns a roadblock into a creative challenge.
Totally. Second gear. Why, how laddering. If you're stuck on the how of the steps, the process you ladder up to the why. Remind yourself of the purpose, the motivation. Why is this important?
Reconnect to the bigger picture.
Right. Or if the why feels fuzzy or isn't motivating you, ladder down to a smaller, more concrete how. Get a quick win, build some momentum. Sir David Ramsbotham did this reforming UK prisons. He changed the why from preventing escape to reducing reoffending. That completely changed the hows they considered.
Shifting the core purpose opened up new possibilities.
Okay.
And the third gear.
Fresh starts. Using temporal landmarks, New Year's, birthdays, even just Monday morning, to psychologically distance yourself from past failures or struggles and refocus. It gives you a clean slate effect.
Like hitting reset.
Yeah, and even micro resets help. Pulsing, taking short breaks, changing your physical space every 90 minutes or so can create these mini fresh starts, re-energizing you and stopping downgrading before it takes hold.
Okay, good practical stuff. Now we head into part 3. Mindless. These sound serious, the deadliest flaws. First is not invented here. NIH.
NIH, yeah, this is a big one. It's that strong resistance, sometimes automatic rejection of ideas, knowledge, solutions, simply because they came from outside your team, outside your company, outside your own head.
Leads to reinventing the wheel constantly.
Totally unnecessarily. May tells the story, a dirty trick he played. He gave junior staff the correct NASA answer to a survival on the moon ranking exercise. The senior managers, who didn't know where the answer came from,
Rejected it.
just because it came from someone perceived as junior or an outsider. Classic NIH. Prioritizing internal, even if inferior, ideas.
Wow. And this happened in the shampoo and videotape challenges too.
Absolutely. People kept suggesting reminders, penalties, incentives, solutions they were told hadn't worked. They just couldn't accept that external information. They had to come up with their own version of a solution, even if it was a known failure. Our brains just seem to shut down a bit if the idea isn't ours.
History is just full of this stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Twitter dismissing the hashtag.
Calling it for nerds, said it would never catch on.
Pierre Pechet saying germ theory was ridiculous fiction. Western Union passing on the telephone. Decca Records rejecting the Beatles.
Groups of guitars are on the way out. Classic. Or Ken Olsen from DEC in 1977 saying, there is no reason anyone would want a computer in their home. It's astounding how often NIH blocks progress.
So why? Why are we like this?
It often comes from feeling burdened or threatened. Our own subject matter expertise, which is good, can become a curse of knowledge. We create these invisible walls around our domain, and anything from outside feels like a threat, triggering defensiveness. We get territorial.
And the brain itself resists.
Yeah, processing new stuff takes effort, that SLO thinking again. Our brains like to conserve energy, so they subtly resist new ideas. Plus, honestly, we don't get the same dopamine hit, that aha feeling, from someone else's idea as we do from our own. Generating our own ideas just feels better chemically.
Okay, so the fix for NIH is proudly found elsewhere. PFE. I like that name.
PFE. It flips NIH on its head. It embraces Picasso's idea. Bad artists copy, great artists steal. It's about actively seeking out and integrating good ideas from anywhere, avoiding that pointless reinvention.
Steve Jobs and Xerox PRS is a prime example, right?
Perfect example. He saw the graphical user interface at Xerox PR, knew it was brilliant, and shamelessly stole it and then massively improved on it for Apple. He wasn't too proud to look outside.
And Procter & Gamble did this systematically.
Yeah, under A.G. Lafley. Their connect and develop strategy mandated that 50% of new product innovations had to come from external sources. It forced a huge cultural shift from NIH to PFE, making the company boundaries much more permeable to outside ideas.
And companies use hackathons for this too.
Right, bringing in diverse external talent to tackle real problems. It injects fresh thinking. And even as individuals, you can cultivate your own knowledge network, like a personal radar screen. Books, podcasts, experts, events, thinking partners, consciously creating an outside-in flow of ideas. It makes you much more open and productive.
Okay, that's a great antidote. Now, the final flaw, the one May calls the deadliest, self-censoring, or ideacide.
Idea side. Yeah, this one's tough because it's internal. Self-censoring is when we reject, deny, stifle, or kill our own ideas, often before they're even fully formed. It's a voluntary shutdown of our own imagination.
He tells that story about the woman in his workshop, the one who actually thought of the elegant shampoo solution, removing the tops.
Yeah. But she dismissed her own idea. Why? Because it seemed too easy and obvious, and she told herself she wasn't very good at these kinds of things. That inner critic just shot it down.
That's heartbreaking, creatively speaking.
Uh-huh.
Yeonmi Moon's anti-creativity checklist captures that voice perfectly. Play it safe, know your limitations, act like a grown-up. Ugh.
Exactly. Stephen Pressfield calls this internal enemy resistance. It shows up as fear, self-doubt, procrastination, perfectionism, all the things that stop us from putting our ideas out there. It's like our brain's threat system goes into overdrive, that little uh-oh or oops electrical signal we get when we make a mistake. It's helpful for learning, but sometimes it goes too far and just keeps us playing way too safe.
And this ties into Ellen Langer's idea of mindlessness.
Precisely. Langer defines mindlessness as when our past experiences completely dictate how we see the present. We get trapped in rigid views, blind to other possibilities. We think we know how things are, creating this illusion of certainty, but reality can always look different from another angle.
Okay, so how do we fight this deadliest flaw? The fix is self-distancing.
Self-distancing, it's about cultivating mindful awareness, getting a bit of perspective on your own thoughts and feelings, stepping back and seeing the situation and your reaction to it more objectively, like an unbiased outsider.
Like Adam Smith's impartial spectator, watching yourself.
Exactly. Observing your own behavior without immediate judgment. And psychologists like Ethan Kross have shown practical ways to do this. His research found that simply switching pronouns when you talk to yourself under stress helps massively.
Instead of, I'm so stressed,
Say, okay, your name, you are feeling stressed, what can you do about it? Or just using you, like LeBron James apparently talking to himself, how do you want to play today? That small shift gives you more objective, helpful feedback, cuts down on just spinning in anxiety.
That's fascinating. Simple but powerful.
Totally. There's also the far and away effect. Studies show that just mentally distancing yourself from a problem, like imagining working on it from Greece instead of your hometown, can significantly boost creative performance.
Like being a tourist in your own problem, you notice more.
Exactly. You lose the baggage, the assumptions. And Alan Langer suggests actively challenging negative thoughts in stressful situations. List reasons why the bad thing might not happen, and then list reasons why, even if it does happen, it could still turn out to be a good thing in some way.
Conditional thinking. It makes you less reactive.
Right. More responsive, less caught up in the fear. All these techniques help free up that inner creative genius that self-censoring tries to silence.
Okay, so wrapping this all up. These 7 flaws, leaping, fixation, overthinking, satisficing, downgrading, NIH, and self-censoring, they're not totally separate issues, are they?
Not really. They're kind of interrelated, often stemming from the same root. Letting our efficient but sometimes lazy, fast-thinking brain take over when our salso-thinking mind should be in charge. The overall goal in fixing them is achieving mindful thinking. May really believes that's the new competitive advantage in our complex world.
And the ultimate fix, the thread connecting all these solutions, is really reframing, isn't it?
Absolutely. It all comes back to changing how you perceive the problem, how you see the potential solutions, and what you believe is actually possible, shifting your fundamental mindset.
Which brings us back beautifully to Ellen Langer, who we mentioned. She leaves us with this incredibly potent piece of advice, doesn't she?
She does. It's simple but profound. As soon as you realize the issue looks different from a different perspective, take that perspective.
Don't just notice it, actively adopt it. Wow.
Yeah. So the question for you, listening right now, is what problem will you try to reframe today? What issue could benefit from seeing it through a completely different lens?
And what new perspective will you choose to step into? Because, as May shows, the power to win this brain game really is in your hands, or rather in your mind.